All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 36 of the Odd G's podcast. There he is, Harry. What's going on, Harry?
Not too much. Just anxious for a good weekend of football. Hopefully this storm gets on out of here now that it's devastated part of Florida. Hopefully it won't interfere with too much of, the college or pro football stuff, and hopefully, everybody's safe.
Would you, if you've often said, Harry, you're going to move to Florida, would you ride out the storm or would you evacuate?
Well, I lived in Florida for 1 year, and then I lived in the Carolinas for 6 years. And during my time in the Carolinas at Wrightsville Beach, I sustained 2 direct hits in the same summer, like one in June and then one in September. It was Bertha and then Fran. I think that was the order. Yeah, Bertha B comes before F. So Bertha came in June, and that was, I think, a category 3 or 4. And then the other one, Fran, was a 3.
Wow.
And I stayed at my house, in my townhouse. And it was.
So you wrote it out.
Yeah, I wrote it out.
Hurricane Bertha. Wow, the Grateful Dead wrote a song about that hurricane.
They did. Huh? Yeah, Bertha, don't you come around here anymore is what I was saying. Exactly right.
That's great. Bruno's down there in Florida. How do you make out?
I was, on Twitter, he's tweeting about it. Yesterday.
Of course.
I saw him
minute by minute, Harry.
Well, I don't know about minute by minute, but I did see some of the tweets where he was kind of bragging that, we lost power, but my generator's humming, and we still have, ice in the fridge or in the freezer and all this kind of crap. And then I texted him, this last night saying, you guys all right? And he got back to me this morning saying, he ended up leaving and going to Delray Beach, which is on the Atlantic side of Florida. Mm-hmm. Near Fort Lauderdale area, and he's staying in some hotel, motel, or whatever. So he ended up leaving. That's tells you how bad it must have been.
Wow, Bruno, he jumped ship.
He
abandoned the last man off the ship. I'm sure. Yeah. He's outside with his BB gun.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to shoot the storm.
Did you see the video? I don't know if it was real, if it was from this storm or what. A guy running out with an Eagles flag, during the storm, and holding the flag up with.
I think a guy I used to work with was the one that posted it.
Is that right?
Brett Holcomb is down there. And, yeah. Brett's running some radio station. I think he was the original one that posted it.
Gainesville, I think, isn't he?
Exactly right. And,
yeah.
But I mean, geez, this storm is crazy. Like looking at the aftermath of it, some of the video.
Yeah.
Like me and the old lady, if you recall, last year, Harry, went down to Sanibel Island.
Oh, they got smacked. That was right where it hit.
That was the first point of land it hit up there.
Right.
And Sanibel is very flat.
Right.
It's it's not very wide. There's just a causeway that goes in, one road out, and not everybody could get out. And it's just devastated. The lighthouse, there was a famous lighthouse there at the end of Sanibel Island, destroyed.
Yeah.
And if I was stuck on that island, I would have got on my hog, the moped, while I was there, Harry.
Right.
And rode it all the way up to Captiva and broke into one of those enormous homes that's up there that never gets used because rich people just buy things and don't use them. And I would have bunkered down in one of their palaces.
Okay. Yeah, that's
huge houses.
Sounds like a smart move. We had, I can't remember if it was Bertha or Fran, but we had an eye party. When the eye passed over, it gets really nice and calm, and there's there's no wind, and it's beautiful. So me and a couple of the nurses that I was working with this is down there. So we had a couple nurses from the surgical center. They were partiers, man, and we got in the pool, and it was topless. It was insane.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. The eye party. I believe it was for Fran in September.
We had the eye party. See, I was in a category 5 on my honeymoon back in Hurricane Wilma in 2005.
You were stranded, right?
Yeah, we were stuck at a shelter for 5 days.
Wow.
So we go. Me and my wife get married on October 16th or October 14th. Excuse me. I should know that.
Jeez.
And we go down to Riviera Maya, Mexico, one of the all inclusives.
Sure.
And we're there 3 days. So the third day, there's a storm. It's a tropical depression brewing out there in the Gulf. And we're on the Yucatan Peninsula south of Cancun. Mm-hmm. And we wake up on that third day, we're eating breakfast. And it was the fastest barometric drop in recorded history overnight.
Wow.
It went from a tropical depression to a category 5 hurricane on a beeline for Cozumel and the Yucatan Peninsula.
Wow.
So we couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So the next morning they shipped us off to this to a shelter, which it was in Cancun. So they took us north, and it was an elementary school,
like a gym or something.
But Harry, the elementary school, the schools down there aren't like ours. Like you walk out the door of the classroom and you're outside.
Mm.
And they don't have windows. They have like wood shutters.
Okay.
Because you're down there. It's always nice, right?
Right.
So we had to board up all this stuff and plastic it up when we got there. 52 people in our classroom sleeping on pool mats.
Oof.
And we were supposed to be there a day while the storm came over. They were going to bring us back. We were there 5 because the
Did
place
you have
was
a pillow?
Destroyed. Yeah, we had a pillow. We had like sheets and a blanket, but a pool mat.
Wow.
Is what we slept on.
That's comfortable.
And it got so if we had to go to the bathroom, we had to go outside.
Wow.
To go across the like corridor out there and go to the bathrooms. And when the storm was so bad, we had to hold up a sheet inside our room so people could go to the bathroom in a waste bucket, and we would throw it out the door.
Oh.
There was so much
so
debris.
This is why you're so comfortable peeing in my driveway. This experience scarred you for the rest of your life.
Yep. But
now
to go to your
sense.
Yeah, to go to your point about the eye of the hurricane. So when the eye came, we had no communication. We're on flip phones back then in 2005. Yeah. All the communications were gone. We thought it was over. We moved all the pool mats out to dry everything out because there was water in there and everything. Right. We thought we were getting out of there. Then the backhand came around, which was worse than the front end.
Sometimes that's worse. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And I mean, the last 2 days we slept in elementary school desks, like this.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
Brutal.
But when you get married, you always wonder what your significant other, how they're going to react if the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
I found out on the honeymoon, Harry.
Immediately. Wow. Yeah. That's an incredible story. I remember you telling me that when we worked together on radio, but you didn't get into as much of the detail. I didn't know about pulling up the sheets and throwing the bucket out the window kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was brutal.
That's traumatic.
When we went back to the resort, there was like dead fish in your room because of all the flooding. And it was just, the resort was destroyed. And we went back, we got hammered, of course. As soon as we got back. And, all the food that we were eating, because we barely ate when we were there. The only Spanish I remember from the trip is La comida esta noche. Are we going to have food tonight? When we were in the shelter. And because they ran out after the second day. So we're back at the resort. And while you could drink bottled water, all the water purifications on the roof in Mexico. And the roofs were all blown off.
Oh, wow.
So they were cooking with unfiltered water.
Oh.
So you'd eat and just run to the shitter.
Oh.
So I came back. I mean, our feet were in all kinds of what we were on. I was on 2 different antibiotics and another medication when I got back. It was brutal.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was Hurricane Wilma.
So the old lady got buckled?
Oh, kidding me? Yeah. Just totally buckled. But like the people, we met a bunch of people that we were in that room with, that were on honeymoons as well. So we have that bond with them. We still keep in touch with a lot of them.
Wow. Yeah.
All over the country.
Okay.
So hurricane, oftentimes, Harry, a hurricane will ruin a name. Like Hurricane Katrina. Like you can't name your kid Katrina anymore.
No. Was that a real popular name anyway?
Katrina and the Waves, maybe.
Well, yeah, that's true. They had one song, right? One hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a nephew named Ian.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to, is he going to catch flack at school now because he's named after the hurricane?
Yeah. Most famous Ians. You got Ian Anderson from Yes. That's a good one, right?
That's John Anderson. Ian Anderson is Jethro Tull.
Oh, Jethro Tull. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the flute guy.
Yeah. The singer.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you got the guy in like the Lord of the Rings movie? Wasn't he an Ian? Sure. The English guy, McClellan.
Oh yeah. I know. Name. I can picture him, but I don't know his name. I'm trying to think. What other Ians do we have?
You got, that's Ian Ziering, but, you actually is named Ian. Now that I think about it, is Ian Lemmy Kilmeister.
Oh, really? See, I didn't know that was his first name.
Yes, it's Ian.
Okay, from Motorhead.
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
you have Ian Astbury too. He was a singer of the Cult.
Oh yeah,
which is
I used to like the Cult.
She sells Sanctuary.
Yeah, that was they were pretty good.
Yeah. So good luck to all the people down there in Florida because I don't know what that pickup and cleanup is going to be like, but
Massive.
the flooding is stunning. Did you see the shark swimming through
Yeah.
somebody's front, like the streets?
Yeah, I did see that. The problem with me, and I'm such a cynic now, especially with social media. I don't know what's real. Like,
Yeah.
I know that that was a real shark, but I don't know if that's from Fort Myers. That could be from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And people
That
are
could have
just
been from somewhere in
posting it.
Africa.
You could be. So unless I see it sourced, from
Yeah.
somebody that I trust, and that doesn't mean you have a blue check mark on Twitter, because I don't trust half of those people either. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if it comes from a news agency with a news camera, photographer, then I'll buy it.
Yeah, because you have a reporter there reporting on the storm,
Yeah.
and that makes sense.
Well, how about the one that they're throwing around where it looked like a Weather Channel guy or something out in the middle of a street with the helmet on?
And that's Jim Cantori.
Well, it might have been him. Yeah, he's bracing for the wind. And then you see this guy in the background walking calmly to his car and getting in the car with no problem at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, that one guy from the Weather Channel got busted one year for embellishing a storm.
Yes.
Mark Seidel.
Is that who it was? Okay.
He was like all down, like, oh my God.
A guy skateboarded behind him, right? Is that the one?
Well, somebody took video and there was like nothing really actually going on.
But I remember seeing a guy skateboarding behind one of these dudes once and just right it through the camera shot as calm as could be. And this guy's making it look like he's got, 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Like he's ready to blow away.
Yeah.
This guy, other guy's like wind skateboarding.
Oh, man.
It's crazy. That Jim Cantori's a nut.
He is a nut. Yeah. You know what would help you through a possible hurricane is if you had some fudge.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Imagine like opening up the cupboard and pulling out a big piece of fudge.
I'd put that in my doomsday bunker, Harry.
To
make sure I had it.
Of course, the official sponsor of Not For Long Media and Odgies is the Original Fudge Kitchen. It's a staple of the Jersey Shore. They've got 6 locations in Cape May, Wildwood, Stone Harbor, and Ocean City. The Original Fudge Kitchen makes all of their fudge right in the store, right on the location, guaranteeing a delicious product to stop by. And so stop by and let them know that N4L sent you. And if you're not able to visit in person, it's not a problem. They ship the fudge across the USA. Be sure to check them out at fudgekitchens.com. The Original Fudge Kitchen, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country. That'll get you through.
Yeah, that's a great item to bunker down with. You got to have the necessities. Fudge would be one of them. Yeah. Obviously, water.
Yeah.
For vodka. You, maybe. Yeah, vodka and cran.
No, Diet Coke. Vodka, Diet Coke. Now, since I came back to the Tito's and stole a Kanaya, I'm doing Diet Coke. And it's funny because I weighed myself yesterday. Every now and then I get on the scale. And I was 192.2, which is the lowest I've been probably since the 90s.
Wow, that's got to feel good, Harry.
It does. And I immediately sent a text to my wife saying, hey, 192.2 today. And, of course, she's pissed off because I don't even try to lose weight, and I'm losing weight. Yeah. And she tries to lose weight and struggles. And she said, what is this diet called that you're on? The vodka and Diet Coke diet? And I'm like, it's working.
Zero calories.
It's working.
Those are not empty calories. Whatever works.
Right.
That's great.
Yep.
Before we get to our guest on this episode, we have Kenny Albert coming on, who does everything under the sun, by the way. We'll get to him in a minute. We've been talking about reading some ratings and reviews that we've gotten on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we thank these people. So let me give you some, Harry.
All right.
Let's start out with a 5-star review coming from Big Dave CM. He says, great to hear the boys back together, enjoying the great dialogue between Harry and Jason and the content. Awesome Beautiful. Show.
Great. Sounds
We're having dialogue in the living room.
So, in other words, he's one of the 100,000 downloads over the past 3 months?
Yes. Probably more than one. He probably gets every episode.
Wow.
So you can subscribe to the show. The show's doing great. MK Potts 85 says, another great show. 5-star review. Wow. Loving hearing Harry and Jason together. Sports and behind the scenes talk. Betting knowledge too. How about Bob from Bryn Mawr? Not Bob from Glenmore.
No. I love that guy. I wonder if he's still around. He had some health issues.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah. And wasn't he from Tennessee too originally or something?
Yeah, originally he was Bob from Tennessee. Then he moved to Glenmore, and then I think he went back to Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
He was a good man.
I met him at one of the Fan Fest things.
Yeah. He liked his whiskey.
Uh-huh.
He was a whiskey drinker.
Right.
Bob says, Sports Talk Uncensored, great podcast. Love hearing behind-the-scenes stories from W.I. Pay and The Fanatic. Thor M says, need more. This is music to my ears. Best duo ever and off the rails in an instant.
That's
Love
true.
the impersonations. I'm usually laughing at my desk at work and people look at me like I'm a nut and not like that acorn hair.
Oh, wow. Nice.
He threw some shot at you there for the rolled ankle.
No, but it's great, though, that people remember all this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They remember. I don't know how they remember it.
I know.
People come up to you all the time like, remember when you did? I'm like, no, I don't remember.
I kind of forgot that.
Yeah. J.O.H. Shelton says, Maze and Mert are a fantastic duo. The Bruno interview had me crying. Keep up the good work. And as always, keep firing. Fantastic work.
Yeah.
I mean, the 5-star reviews are all over the place.
Keep firing. He loves his wagering on sports.
Oh, yeah.
That guy. I've met him, too. He can play
Screams.
golf.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Scream Seams says the best Philly sports duo. I've missed listening to these two guys. They were can't miss radio. Now they're can't miss podcasters. Just listening to them talk about the old days of sports radio and going back and forth between stations without all the red tape. And I enjoyed the segment with the best rock riffs.
Oh, yeah.
He said just needs to be longer or a second weekly show because I can't get enough.
You see, they always want more.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're our plan. Leave you wanting more, not giving you more.
That's what I always used to try to convey to the program director. Like, less is more.
He never got that.
He wasn't buying it.
It's not more. It's less.
Maybe I got the wrong guy.
Yeah. I got a call from him last night. I got to call him back.
Did you?
He called me right when I was getting ready to do an intermission at the Flyers game. So I can only imagine what he wants.
Oh, my God.
A Philly fan AFS says, great pod, Bo. He says, Myrtetus with the impressions always has me dying, especially the old boss. Got to get him in.
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's great. They're just good. Oh, how about this? Oh, Chip Reederson left us a review.
Oh, nice. Love that guy.
He said, sounding good, brothers. You a podcastman, Bo? Great to hear you guys back together. And free to talk about whatever you want to. It's just a lot of great reviews. So leave us one. Leave us a nice 5-star rating review. Nobody ripped us in the reviews. I'm surprised at that.
I mean, feel free to, because we will read those as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our guest of honor in this episode, Harry. He does great work on the NFL on Fox, on the NHL on TNT. He does the voice for the Rangers. He does NBA games. He does
Olympic
baseball.
hockey.
Yeah, he's done Olympic. He's done it all. And he's one of the big names in sports broadcasting. Our guest on this episode is Kenny Albert. Okay, you see him right there. If you're watching it visually, I see an NHL All-Star jersey. Is that a Campbell Conference jersey back there, Harry? The one and only Kenny Albert.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because last December, I was on a Zoom call with Brian Daboll, the current head coach of the New York Giants, and he was the offensive coordinator with Buffalo, and our crew was about to go up and do a Bills game. I had never met Brian before, never spoken with him, and he got on the Zoom just like you guys just did, and the first thing he said to me, is that a Campbell or Wells Conference jersey?
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in the Buffalo area, big hockey fan, so I gave him big props for bringing up the conferences from the late 80s, early 90s.
Back when hockey was, great. I watched it every night.
Oh, there were some high-scoring games back then.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. But you brought up Buffalo and the NFL. Give me your early thoughts here 3 weeks in. If you would have asked people, last weekend, maybe to say who's the two best teams in football, they would probably say Buffalo and maybe the Philadelphia Eagles. What are your thoughts on that through three weeks?
Right. I'm not sure how many people would have expected the Dolphins and the Eagles to be the only 3-0 teams at this point. To be honest, I don't get to see as much as you guys do from around the league. I'm always at a game Sunday, and then I catch part of the Sunday night game on the plane when I get home, and then the Monday night game. So I can really go in depth on the 6 teams that I've seen so far. But No, there have been some great stories. Like I said, I don't know how many people would have expected these two teams to be the only undefeated teams. A little bit of a surprise that the Raiders, I had their game on Sunday against the Titans, 0-3 playoff team a year ago. That was really a game. Both teams needed it badly. Tennessee and Las Vegas both started off 0-2. And our crew put up a graphic in the fourth quarter. Teams that start 1-2 have a 25% chance of making the playoffs based on numbers back over the last 3 decades. 0-3, it's only 2.5%. So that was a huge game. Now it's a little different now because you have the extra regular season game, so the numbers are skewed a little bit. But it's been an exciting start to the season.
I tell you, could Scottsdale, Phoenix area withstand a Buffalo Bills, Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl with those two fan bases?
Ooh, Bills Mafia and Eagle fans, forget it. Maybe they get some attendance at a Coyotes game, Har.
That's a good point.
Only have about 5,000 seats to sell this year.
That's right.
Yeah. Make it Flyers and Sabres night and get rid of Arizona and you'd sell it out. What does that week look like for you leading up to an NFL game, Kenny? Because you guys got to get downloaded on so much stuff. First of all, do they fly you first class?
They do, usually.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. If not, I was going to recommend to be your representation and get that taken care of in your contract.
You know, when I apply for hockey broadcasts, we try to put Keith Jones in the last row, but doesn't always work.
No, he's front of the plane guy. Always nonstop talking too. But what does that week look like preparing for an NFL game? I mean, you've done them for so long. You flex so many different muscles doing all these different sports. So what does it look like for an NFL week?
It's pretty comprehensive. The NFL, from a broadcast standpoint, is so much different than the other sports, hockey, basketball, baseball, because those teams play all the time. NHL and NBA teams play 3 or 4 games a week. Baseball teams play 5 or 6 games a week. The football broadcasts are all national on the TV side. There are no local broadcasts. So we might have 2 teams week 17 that we haven't seen all season. So you're really playing catch up. This week I have Carolina, Arizona down in Charlotte. So during the week, Monday through Thursday, we're on our own, doing our own prep, watching both teams' previous games. I have a checklist that I go down. I read pretty much every article I could find from both cities. You prepare charts and statistics and go through materials that are sent by various sources. We get a big packet from each team from Fox with stats and notes from the NFL. So Monday through Thursday, you're looking through all that stuff. I'll fly this week, Thursday night, sometimes Friday morning, depending where we are. The Panthers happen to be practicing real early on Friday, so I'll get in there Thursday night. We'll go to Carolina's practice Friday. We'll get to sit down with Matt Rule and Phil Snow, the defensive coordinator, and a couple of players, Baker Mayfield and one of the players from the defensive side. And then Friday night, we'll have a production dinner, 7 or 8 of us, myself, Jonathan Vilma, Shannon Spakes, our sideline reporter, producer, director, and a couple of the other folks we work with. Saturday, we'll go see the visiting team in their hotel, and we'll sit down again with a coach, a coordinator, a couple of players. Then we have our own production meeting on Saturday night. So it's probably 30 to 40 hours of work preparing for an NFL game. It doesn't feel like work to me. Yes, there is a lot of prep and travel involved, but to me, it's fun studying sports, watching games, reading about the teams. But, everybody watching the game, the fans of those teams have watched all of their team's games. So you're playing catch up during the week. Jonathan Vilma's watching a lot of film, and we're all kind of comparing notes. So that's a typical NFL week. I have a checklist I go through for each and every game. Now you sprinkle in hockey starting up. I do some basketball as well. Worked the Phillies game last week. So you just have to be real organized and get the work done. I tend to get a lot done on flights and in taxis and Ubers, airports, hotel rooms. So I probably have it down to a science as far as the preparation, because I've been at it now for just over 3 decades, which is hard to believe.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what I was going to ask about, because hockey's starting up right now. And of course you do the Rangers, and I did some research on you, and I found out that you did 4 games, 4 sports, different sports in 4 days. I didn't know this. You did the Vikings Steelers game, with a typical game, on a Sunday. And then that night you did ALCS work with the Yankees, I guess you were in the locker room, doing interviews and so forth.
That wasn't the play-by-play. That was post-game interviews.
Right. And then the next day you did a Rangers game. And then the day after that, you did a Knicks game. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's happened a couple of times in October when everything's going on at once.
Wow.
As we speak now on a Tuesday, I'm actually coming off a stretch, although things were relatively quiet over the summer, get a little bit of downtime, and now it's all starting up again. Actually did work 3 different sports the last 5 days. I had that Phillies-Brave game last Thursday, Titans-Raiders on Sunday, and then the Rangers-Islanders preseason game last night. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the variety. Football and hockey are the sports that I work the most and have worked the most through the years. I do fill in on about 15 to 20 Knicks games per year and do some baseball on Fox as well. But it's a fun time of year. And you're right. In October, there have been a couple of instances where it's 4 sports in the span of 4 or 5 days at times.
The thing about it is the way to do a broadcast for all of those sports is completely different. It's a totally different rhythm and different, it's not muscle memory because they all require you to have a different approach and mindset and skill set going into it. What's it like, to try and shift gears and go, okay, I just did a hockey game and I went to overtime last night. Here's the pitch, that whole thing. I mean, that's not easy to do.
I guess I'm so used to it. And there's also the factor of going back and forth. Hockey is really the only sport where this applies for me personally, going back and forth between TV and radio as well. Yeah, that might even be a bigger challenge than going back and forth between sports, because I might do a hockey radio game on a Tuesday and a TV game on Wednesday, and it's a lot different. Radio, you have to be so much more descriptive, give the time and the score way more often, whereas on TV, you can pull back, let your analysts come in more frequently. So, that's part of it as well. To me, hockey is the easiest. Most people think it would be the hardest because
I would think it'd be the hardest.
Changes on the fly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I've done it now for 32 years. It's like riding a bike. Basketball is similar. It's players going up and down the court, the ice. There are stoppages, more stoppages in basketball than hockey. Football is the most rhythmic. It's one play and then it's 20 or 25 seconds. It's another play and then it's 20 or 25 seconds. Baseball to me is the most challenging because you have so much downtime between pitches, between the ball getting put into play. But going back and forth between sports, I guess because I've done it for so long, that's not too bad as far as the level of the challenge. But you just have to be organized. I'm reading for hours and hours every day about the various teams and sports. You kind of have to keep your thoughts pretty organized, like I said, and watching all the games that I watch, whether it's football, hockey, baseball, basketball, leading up to a telecast. Like I said, it takes a lot of time, but it's fun. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Football's got to be getting tougher with the quicker they run these plays. You don't have as much time in between plays to sort of let your analysts, describe what happened and, a little back and forth. You got to go on to the next play.
Right. That happens with certain teams and certain offenses. Probably not as much for the play-by-play announcer as, like you said, for the analyst and the producer and director. They might have a harder time getting replays in, for example. Right. Between plays if the team goes quickly back up to the huddle. So probably affects the replays and the analysts more so than it would me, although it's a team effort. But you do get that with certain teams, certain offenses, and it's just part of the fun that we have in calling these games every week.
It's crazy to me that you're able to shift gears like that, because I imagine, like you said, in hockey and basketball, you're just calling it as you see it. There's so much flow to those sports, and then the rigid nature of football, and it's play and let the analyst do his thing and the whole thing. How's it been working with Jonathan Vilma?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I might hold the record. I've worked with over 225 color analysts throughout my career.
Oh my goodness.
And I just finished up a book actually, which will come out about a year from now. And one of the chapters is about the various color analysts that I work with. I list all of them. He's a really smart guy, has a high football IQ. Love hearing some of his stories about going back and forth with Peyton Manning in that Saints-Colts Super Bowl when Jonathan was calling the defense and Peyton was the architect of the Colts offense. He's done a really nice job as an analyst. It's his 3rd year now. The first year was a challenge. It was the COVID year. We weren't even allowed to have meals together, have production people in person. We were traveling to the games on our own, so never really got the opportunity to know each other very well. Last year, it was a bit of a hybrid. We were able to have meals and be in the same car. So he's doing a great job. Had a terrific playing career with the Jets and the Saints and the University of Miami prior to that. We have Shannon Spake on the sidelines. In hockey, I got to work with Eddie Olczyk and Keith Jones on Turner, Dave Maloney and Joe Micheletti on the Rangers, Walt Clyde Frazier on the Knicks. So the color analysts are such a big part of it. I look at myself as the traffic cop. I try to set them up as often as possible, and really can't think of a color analyst that I did not enjoy working with throughout my career. I have a long list, Hall of Famers, champions in all the sports, and they all bring a unique perspective to the telecasts.
Will there be a chapter on Baldy?
Baldy's one of my favorites.
One on his pinky too, Har.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Worked 4 years with Baldy, 2003 to 2006. We had a lot of fun. I could still picture Baldy at my house here in North Jersey, where I still live. This was during the time we worked together, and my daughter was 5 at the time, 5 or 6. Now she's 23, and she had a bunch of friends here, and Baldy was here for a July 4th party, and he was playing the role of camp counselor up on the diving board, throwing all the kids into the pool. Then we had a basketball game in the driveway. So he's definitely among my favorites of all the analysts that I ever worked with. And,
yeah, both of us have worked with him
again,
too. He's
such a great football mind as well. I love watching his Baldy's breakdowns. And hearing him on radio and television broadcasts. He's great.
Any good stories from any games you did in Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia, many. I can remember when I worked with Moose Johnston at the Link, many Eagles games when I was with Moose and Goose, the late Tony Siragusa, who was also one of my favorites. One game, the fans right underneath the broadcast booth were giving it to Moose a little bit, not necessarily fans of the Cowboys in the stands at Eagles games, and they were kind of jokingly giving it to Moose during one of our commercial breaks, and he shut them up pretty quickly by flashing one of his 3 Super Bowl rings.
Scoreboard.
Down at that section of fans. A lot of memories. I mean, the Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb years, I don't think the Eagles get enough credit for how good those teams were, getting to 5 championship games. And we called a lot of those regular season games. And it was a lot of fun to watch that team grow and mature. As far as baseball, worked a lot of Phillies games during their glory years. We once had Ryan Howard in the booth with us for a couple of minutes during an Eagles game. And that night, he played in a playoff game right across the street. Fox was doing both games. So as part of the promotion, we had Ryan in the booth with us for a few innings. One of our beloved crew members, Lou Tribbiani, who lived in the Philly area, passed away 10 years ago in 2012. And we had a couple of fundraisers at Chicky and Pete's.
Oh, yeah.
With Moose and Goose and our whole crew. And we raised a lot of money for a scholarship in Lou's name. And so many of the local teams were extremely gracious in donating tickets and jerseys. We had a Claude Giroux jersey. Jay Wright donated front row seats and a locker room visit at a Villanova game, among many other great items from the Eagles and all of the teams. So unfortunately, Lou's passing led us to putting together those events, but they were memorable nights. As far as the Flyers, I've worked so many games through the years. I was calling the game on radio, and I've gone out to work with Brian Boucher for many years, and we always talk about the shootout, 2010. Game 82. I was doing the Rangers radio broadcast, and it was the only year they missed the playoffs in a stretch of 12 years. They made it 11 out of 12, and that was the only year they missed. So that was Bush always likes to joke that I told him that was game 82. So that was the last game of the regular season. Rangers were eliminated. And before I got in my car in the parking lot, my wife had already booked a trip to Florida. It was the kids' spring break. So because the Rangers missed the playoffs, we wound up going on vacation. So Bush likes to remind me that one of his biggest moments in the NHL was sending my family on vacation back in 2010.
Was that Olli Jokinen on that save that he made?
Was the last shooter. Yep.
Yeah, and then Bush blew a tire trying to have a celebration there.
He did.
He's still pissed about that. Like he tried to get a good.
Oh, believe me, we remind him about that one too.
Yeah, no doubt. Is there anything you've called Olympics, you've called just about everything under the sun, the 4 majors. you've called, I mean, so many different sports, so many different great players throughout the years, great partners. Is there anything that you haven't called that you want to call? Like, I think you'd be really good at Formula One, Kenny. So I put your resume in with Sky Sports.
I did once with Moose and Goose. We did the Richard Petty Experience down in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys actually drove the race car. I had never driven a stick shift before, so I sat in the passenger seat, and a professional driver, it took me around 3 or 4 laps at 130, 140 miles per hour. So that's the extent of my racing experience.
Is there anything that you want to call that you haven't called?
I've been real fortunate to be involved in all 4 to different extents over the last 25, 30 years, the 4 major sports in the U.S. I have called some other sports. I've done some boxing, worked some track and field and volleyball at the Olympics, believe it or not, for NBC. Curling looks like it might be fun. I've gone to curling matches at the Olympics. I really don't know much about it. It was somewhat confusing, but that's probably the only one I haven't called. To be honest, again, very fortunate that I've been involved, football and baseball with Fox, hockey with first the Capitals and then the Rangers, minor league days in Baltimore, Fox, NBC, Turner, basketball with the Knicks. I think the goal for all of us is to call the biggest events, and I've been lucky enough to call 7 or 8 Stanley Cup finals on radio, and then on the TV side 2 years ago when Tampa Bay beat Montreal, and then our crew with Eddie and Jonesy will have the Cup final this year for TNT. So really looking forward to that. With Fox, called 5 divisional playoff games, again with Moose and Goose, Darryl Johnston and Tony Siragusa. I worked the international world feed of Super Bowl 46, so I have had the opportunity to work.
Oh, that's cool.
One Super Bowl, the international feed. I mean, that would obviously be the goal for any sports play-by-play announcer, would be to call a Super Bowl on network TV in the United States. I've had the opportunity, like I said, on the world feed. So that would obviously be a goal and a lifetime thrill to continue to call the Stanley Cup final every other year. With Turner, we have it every odd year. ESPN has it on the even-numbered years. So, again, just very fortunate to be involved in so many big events. You mentioned Olympics. My first Olympics back in 2002, believe it or not, I got the call a week before. Doc Emmerich's dog fell ill, and Doc and his wife have a number of dogs, horses. They love animals, and Doc did not want to leave his wife home for 3 weeks with the sick dog, believe it or not. And that's how I wound up calling hockey at the 2002 Winter Olympics, and now it's 6th Winter Olympics later, 2 Summer Olympics. So those have been a lot of fun as well.
Were there any challenges for you pursuing the same line of work as such a famous father?
It's a good question. I get that once in a while. I didn't look at it as a challenge. Maybe other people would. I didn't feel pressure. Maybe others would. I was never forced to go into the family business. I just loved it. When I was 5 or 6, I received a tape recorder from my parents, and I started announcing games into the recorder. And when I was old enough, I would bring it to various games at Madison Square Garden or Shea Stadium, and was very lucky in high school when a small cable station came to my school, and I volunteered to announce the game and wound up working for them for 3 years, and then opportunities in college. And then the 2 years in Baltimore were huge. We were talking prior to getting started, and Keith Jones actually was on our team. My second year in 91, 92, he finished up at Western Michigan, turned pro. I witnessed his first professional goal with the Baltimore Skipjacks, but I wouldn't trade those years in for anything. Just the experience, getting reps, 80 games a year, working in the team office, riding the bus with the players. Barry Trotz was my road roommate for 2 years. Joel Quenneville was on our team the first year. He had gotten sent down by Washington at the end of his career. So I was riding the bus with, as it turned out, the second and third winningest head coaches in NHL history, in Joel Quenneville and Barry Trotz. Wow. So unbelievable learning experience. And I mentioned earlier, I'm writing a book. It's called A Mic for All Seasons, and the I in Mike is a microphone. And I tell a lot of these stories about the early days in the minor leagues and travel tales and anecdotes about color analysts. So it brought back a lot of great memories.
When's the book coming out?
About a year from now.
About a year. Yep.
About a year.
Okay. It's a long process with the editors and the publishers, but
you get 200 plus partners.
lot of partners. Jonesy was nice enough to write a blurb.
He didn't write it. You know that, right?
He may have dictated.
He probably spoke it and somebody dictated it for him.
Any secrets?
Have you read his book? It's like a third grade reading book.
I did read, written by John Buccigross and Jonesy. I did read his book in preparation for writing mine. So the problem was I had already heard most of the stories, so it was somewhat redundant, but it was he's got some great ones.
So his book was your inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A hockey book done right, Harry.
I had to go one page longer than Jonesy.
Yeah. There's a lot of pictures in his. You work all the different sports, so you deal with all the different athletes and, the cultures of the sports. They're all vastly different. The only reason I still do hockey, Kenny, 16 years later, and I'm still doing the games, is because the guys are so easy to deal with and they're so great. What's the differences in the guys you deal with? I'm not going to ask you to pick your favorite because I know it's hockey, but what's the differences in the guys and how you deal with, around the locker room and all that?
The hockey players historically have had that tremendous reputation, and a lot of it was their upbringing, whether in Canada or in small towns in Europe. But I'll have to admit, guys, we go in, it's been 29 years broadcasting NFL games, and we have these meetings with the players and coaches on Fridays and Saturdays, and I could probably count on one hand the ones that we did not enjoy spending time with. Now, some of it might be a result of the quarterbacks and some of the other key players. They do it every week, so they're kind of used to it. But it's been overall a pretty positive experience. And I write about this in the book, but one of the best ever was Brett Favre. He would sit there for 45 minutes to an hour, never acted as if he had to be somewhere else or, never looking at his watch. He would sit there and tell stories about hunting and fishing and his kids and growing up in Mississippi. And, a lot of it wasn't necessarily information you could use on the air, but he was tremendous. Guys like Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, they seem to have a photographic memory. Just listening to them talk about games they played in and plays they were involved in. Most of the quarterbacks are great because, again, they do it
polished
just about every week. They're polished. I remember the first ever game. It was the Rams and Cardinals back in 1994, and I was 26. My partner, Ron Pitts, was in his early 30s, and we walked into a meeting with 60-something-year-old Chuck Knox, and he was kind of looking at us like, who are these guys? So after about 10 minutes, I think he was done. But Buddy Ryan, we met with that weekend, and again, it was intimidating. I'm 26, who's Buddy Ryan, and we have to sit in a room and ask him questions. Now it's flipped. Now I'm older than a lot of these head coaches, so
right.
I've kind of run through the gamut.
You brought up the Mannings. Have you seen their simulcast of the Monday night games? And what do you think of that kind of broadcast?
I love the Manning cast. I watched most of them last year. Watched the first one this year. Got home late last night after a hockey game, so I didn't see it during the Giants-Cowboys game. If you're a fan of one of the teams, you're probably going to watch the traditional telecast with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. But if you're neutral, I would think the Manning cast, it's very entertaining, number one, but I learned so much about football. You hear their thought process and what goes into each and every play. So not that I want to see play-by-play announcers lose jobs at all, because that's not the case. But as a secondary broadcast, I'm a big fan of the Manning cast.
So you think there's room for that? I
do. There are so many. There are so many options for folks these days. Whether you're a youngster or 75 years of age, you have traditional television, but you have all the apps and the computer and the iPad or your phone, and you can watch 500 different things within seconds. So it's another option for people out there, and I don't think it's going away. We've seen it in some other sports. During the college football national championship game, they've had additional telecasts. We've seen it during some of the other pro sports as well. The Michael K. A-Rod telecast on ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball. So I think there's definitely a place for it, along with the traditional telecast.
Yeah, you still need the traditional,
Right,
calling
because
the game.
the Mannings sometimes might talk through a play or two. They're not necessarily focused on each and every play.
Yeah, it's a commentary. It's an interesting. I enjoy it as well. It's when I'm not heavily invested. I think it's fun to watch, and those two are great.
You're probably watching the other guys.
Yeah. Those two, like even Eli Manning has a personality. I don't know if you saw the Penn State thing.
It's
he did,
developing. Before our eyes.
When we would meet with him as a player, and I probably did 40 of his games through the years. He was always cordial and very nice when we would meet with him, but you never really saw the personality like we would with Peyton. Mm-hmm. But we always heard from ex-teammates and others around the team that he had a great personality in the locker room and that he was one of the big pranksters and jokesters. And now that the career is over, that's come out. He definitely, I'm sure, felt like he had a persona that he had to keep with as a player, as the quarterback of the New York Giants. And now that he's retired, we get to see all the other good stuff.
Yeah. Chad Powers, I think that the guy's name was.
Yeah, it was funny as hell. Yeah. You're going to be with two of my favorites this week, though. I used to do the Temple games during the Matt Rule era, and Phil Snow and Matt Rule are two of my favorite guys in sports.
They're great to talk to.
Yeah.
Phil Snow, I know Jonathan Vilma loves the meetings we've had with Phil Snow. I always like to bring up to Matt Rule something about New York because he grew up before moving to State College. He grew up on Roosevelt Island in New York, and he would tell stories about taking 3 subways and a bus to get to a football field for practice as a youngster. So I always like to, throw a little New York, get a little New York anecdote from Coach Rule. Look forward to seeing him this week. Our good mutual friend Colin Thompson.
Yeah.
Also Colin over the weekend, and obviously played for Coach Rule previously, and now back with the Panthers as well. Yeah,
he's a great guy. Last thing for you, Kenny. Of the 4 majors, NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB, who's the kind of the guy for you, the best that you've ever watched? Like in the NFL, is it a guy like Al Michaels? Who's the creme de la creme play-by-play announcer for each of the majors, in your opinion?
Oh, wow. I thought you were talking about players, and
That's what I thought.
I was about to mention Gretzky and some of the others.
Yeah, that would have been easy.
From a play-by-play standpoint, I think in the NFL, you have to go with Al Michaels. He's still at the highest level, even at his age. And I've gotten to spend a little time around him. Eddie Olczyk and I had a great dinner with Al and another mutual friend of ours last year in LA. And that was really the first time I spent extended time.
Yeah, he's a big Kings fan.
And he's a big Kings fan, big hockey fan. And the stories were flowing for about 3 hours. So I think in hockey, there are so many, but Doc Emmerich, just retired a couple of years ago. And I had the great opportunity to be a colleague of his at NBC. I don't want to leave anybody else out, but if I'm going with one, am I allowed to mention family members here or not?
Absolutely.
Because I think in basketball, my father is certainly considered by many to be, the voice of the NBA for.
That's not a hot take.
For a number of decades, especially during the Chicago Bulls run in the 90s, the Knicks back in the 70s. But Mike Breen, who's another good friend and colleague, he's done more NBA finals than anybody now. And he's the lead TV voice for the Knicks. I work about 20 games when he's away on national assignment. And in baseball, it's got to be Vin Scully. Just passed away recently. There are so many others. I mean, I enjoy watching whether it's Mike Tirico or Ian Eagle, Joe Buck. Too many to name, really, but the ones that you mentioned are certainly among the best of all time in their respective sports.
My favorite hockey guy was Gary Thorne.
Oh yeah,
he was great. He was. So when I filled in for Doc in 2002, as I referenced earlier, Gary Thorne was the other hockey announcer there for NBC. So he did most of the men's, the U.S. games, and I would do some of the other games, and then I did the women's gold medal game. He worked the men's, but he was a top hockey voice on ESPN for a long time. In Philadelphia, we've had some great ones: Gene Hart, Jim Jackson on the TV side,
Harry Callis,
Merrill Reese. So I was a big radio listener as a kid. We didn't have cable TV until I was about 17 or 18. So we had 9 pro teams in New York.
Right.
I was listening to all the games on the radio.
Man. When did you get cable? Like the early 80s, like I did?
Yeah. Yeah, it was like 17 when I was about to move out to go to college, and we finally got kids.
Yeah, it was a whole different world. Hey, Kenny, best of luck this weekend down in Carolina, and great season's coming up for you. You're going to be busy, man. So I hope you punched in that quality time clock with the family over the summer.
Thanks for squeezing us in.
Well, a lot of quality time over the summer and a lot of quality time with Jonesy coming up. So no, I appreciate it. Jason, Harry, always great to be with you guys, and hopefully we could do it again at some point during the season.
Awesome.
Sounds
great
good.
stuff. Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, guys.
I'd list off all the places he's worked, Har.
Oh, my God.
But we'd be here it's another episode. It'd be like, okay, so the NHL play-by-play voice on TNT, the Rangers. I mean, it's NFL it's insane.
And we finally found a guy that has more partners than me.
Yeah. But does he have more partners than Anthony?
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's a good question.
That's the co-host graveyard, which I have a headstone, Har.
Yes, you do. Yes. I got to tell you about Som Sleep, man, because if you're having trouble getting enough sleep at night, Som Sleep has you covered. The scientifically advanced Som Stack includes ingredients that are naturally found in your body, like GABA, magnesium, and melatonin. And sleep is the best form of recovery. And it has helped NFL founder and NFL tight end Colin Thompson take his game to the next level. It's quite simple. All you have to do is drink one serving just 30 minutes before bedtime, and your body's going to naturally calm itself down. Other sleep supplements, they're going to leave you groggy in the morning, but not Som Sleep. You're going to wake up feeling refreshed and ready to conquer the day. So make sure to check them out at getsom.com. That's GETSOM.com, and use the code GEEZ, JEEZ, for 10% off your order. Get Som Sleep.
Special thanks to Kenny Albert for joining us on this episode of the Geez podcast. It's incredible all the work that he's done. And him and Mike Tirico, Har. I'll tell you what, this Mike Tirico.
Oh, yeah.
They're two of the most versatile play-by-play broadcasters you will find.
Yeah, they can do anything. They really can.
I can't imagine how hard it is to go from doing a hockey game to doing a baseball game.
Me either. And it's funny he said that, that baseball is the toughest one to do. And I would have thought it would be hockey because it's so fast and guys are coming on and off the ice all the time. I'm like, how does he know? Like how can he see the numbers? Like, do they have a guy there with it? Like, is he doing the game in binoculars?
No,
some of the arenas.
You just got it. Like play-by-play guys always complain about this. The Flyers outdoor game jerseys in Pittsburgh for that stadium series, that you could barely see the numbers,
right?
Because of the way the colors of the jersey, and it didn't have numbers on the shoulders too. That helps the broadcaster,
right?
And you got to just hope that you got them all down. I mean, you see so many of the same teams repeatedly. These preseason hockey games, like Tim Saunders has got to know about 70 guys on the Flyers
because they got all the young guys playing.
Yeah, and then every team they're playing against.
Oh man,
yeah, and some of these names, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, wow,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
it's hard to do, but play-by-play guys love just calling what they see, not vamping.
Right.
So
right.
That's why I think Kenny enjoys that the most. Plus, hockey's the greatest sport in the world. So
I know he did some baseball, not a lot, but he's done some baseball. And had I seen this documentary before we had him on, I would have asked him about if he ever did a Nolan Ryan game.
So this documentary, tell people about this. It's on Netflix, Har?
God, it's awesome. Yes, it's on Netflix. I just found it yesterday. I was just, popping on there because I had 2 hours to kill. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just, see what's on Netflix. And it showed up right on the first line. It's called Facing Nolan.
Oof,
is the
which
name
would not have been a bargain.
No, it was not. And he did. See, the thing about it is a lot of stuff on Netflix and Amazon, when they're talking about someone doing a doc, the actual person isn't in it.
Yeah.
This is all Nolan Ryan and his wife and, other people in his life. So this is legit. It was Pete Rose was in it. Dave Winfield. I mean, it was really cool. And they even had some good footage of the Astros Phillies series back in the 80s. And you saw our guy Boa in 1980, because they faced each other in the NLCS before they went on, and Phillies beat the Royals to win the World Series. So it was really, really cool. And he has 51 Major League Baseball records. 51. Wow. And most will never be touched.
And you know why they won't be touched? because we treat our pitchers like pussies now.
Well, right, yeah, but they don't make them like this guy anymore. I mean,
No.
Roger Clemens, I think, lasted 23 seasons. This guy pitched for 27 seasons and started out with the Mets. And the Mets scout that saw him pitching in Texas, in Alvin, Texas, said to the coach in high school, "Don't tell any other scouts about this kid. I want him." And so he went drafted lower because the Mets were the only team that really knew about him. So they take him, and he comes in as a relief pitcher with some of the amazing Mets in '69 when they went on to win the World Series. Tom Seaver and Jerry Koosman were on that staff. So he was a relief pitcher and actually won him a game in the NLCS that kind of got him known. Yeah. But the Mets gave up on him and traded him to the California Angels, who were dog shit. Okay. Yep. They were not the Dodgers. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to LA. I'm going to the Dodgers." No, he went to the Angels. But the pitching coach there changed his delivery, and his career went, to the moon from there. Yeah. So it was that guy that kind of made Nolan Ryan this pitching coach. It's really interesting, man. He's got over 300 wins.
Holy shit.
Okay. And 7 no-hitters.
Jeez. Over a really long period of time.
Right.
Too.
The last one, he was like 45 years old with the Texas Rangers. It's insane.
And the guy, I mean, it's got to be innings pitched. He's got to be the most.
Oh, it's got to be. Yeah, that's got to be one of them too.
Yeah, but, I mean, and they'll never be touched because guys don't go, throw like that many innings anymore.
Right.
I mean, he just laughs at the pitch count.
Oh, I know. Totally.
If a manager walked out to him and said, "You're at 97 pitches, we're going to get you out of here," he'd say, "Fuck off."
Yeah, well, he did do that. There's part of the documentary on that because this guy Tom House was a pitching coach. Remember, he's the guy that works with NFL quarterbacks too, I believe, to this day out in California. He was the pitching coach for the Texas Rangers when Bobby Valentine was the manager, and this was in the latter part of his career. And Valentine said, "You go out and tell him he's coming out." And like Valentine didn't even want any part of it.
Hey, Valentine's like, "I'm no fool. I'm not going to tell that guy anything."
It was pretty good.
Wow, that's incredible. I got to watch that. That sounds
really
like a really good one.
Highly recommended.
Yeah. The documentaries where the subject of the documentary is not in it.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like some of them,
a lot of the music ones are like that.
Yeah. Because they're past, they died.
Right.
There's a Michael Schumacher one on there, which is great, but he's not in it because he's basically in a coma still from the skiing accident many years ago.
Yeah.
But that's a great one as well. I love a good sports documentary.
Yeah.
So I got to play for you this week, Harry, on the to get in. How about the Formula One is returning this week to Singapore for the first time since 2019. True sign the pandemic's over. They're back doing the Asian tour. So they're going to go to Singapore this week and Japan and Suzuka next week. But Max Verstappen will win his 6th straight race this week in Singapore.
What do you got to lay to bet him?
I bet you the odds are pretty steep. I'll find out. Do an NFL play?
I kind of like the over in this Eagles game this week, 46 with the Jaguars. I think both teams are going to be scoring in the 20s. So,
oh wow,
I like 46 over.
Is this Eagles team 100% legit? I didn't like the second half. I really didn't.
2 in a row now, second halves where they've really kind of gone to sleep. But they get out to big leads, give them credit, and the defense holds it. I'm waiting to see them play a really good team. I think Jacksonville's pretty good, but I'm going to wait and hold judgment. I like what I see, but I'm not totally jumping in with both feet yet.
Okay, so but you got to love that first half from Jalen Hurts.
Oh yeah, it was about that's as good as he's ever played in the pro.
Yeah, he looks really good. So Doug P coming to town, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Good drama.
I saw our buddy Nick Kale tweet out that if you boo Doug P, you should be ejected from the stadium.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
don't
brought
boo
you a
him.
Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, what's the sense in booing the coach anyway? It's not like it's Jimmy Johnson. This guy won the only Super Bowl in the franchise's history. To me, you give him a standing O.
I saw Doug was asked about that, and he says he'd like to be cheered like Andy Reid was when he came back. I guess his first time, but he said you never know. Even he knows.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still feel like he kind of was made the scapegoat. for what was going on here. And I don't, the guy won a Super Bowl, and he's a good dude. So
he won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
Over Brady.
Right. That was injected into the lineup late in the season. It's not like Carson got hurt for the year in week 2. Like this was like week 13 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was exactly that because they were 10-3 at the time
or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So if Andy Reid, got a standing ovation and lost to Belichick and Brady,
right? Certainly
Doug could get a standing ovation for beating Belichick and Brady with a backup quarterback.
Agreed.
Verstappen minus 165 this week, Harry.
Well, that's not so bad. I thought it would be higher. He's that good.
Yeah, I mean they don't put the odds on these races because you got 20 other cars and there's a few that can win it, and there's always Singapore heading into turn 1. It's the start.
There's always accidents.
Oh yeah, there's been a safety car at every single Singapore Grand Prix, so oftentimes on the first lap. So
wow,
minus 165 for Max this weekend. So I'll take him. Minus 130 for the fastest lap as well. That car's a rocket ship.
Yeah, it is. Red Bull.
Yes, the Red Bull Racing Team out of Milton Keynes in England. Let's go to Wealth Advisors, Harry, because you can put your money on the game, but you'd be wiser to put it with Wealth Advisors.
Well, yeah, you take your winnings from Verstappen in Singapore and give it to Wealth Advisory Services, because if you don't know them, you should. Paul, Dave, and their team have over 100 years of first-class service, working with all different levels of investors across the country. There's something more powerful than luck or coincidence that helps bring financial independence. It's called planning. As professionals dedicated to continuing education and a high standard of ethics, they leave nothing to chance. Wealth Advisory Services coordinate with other trusted professionals to ensure seamless management of your assets with services that range from portfolio management, insurance, tax, estate, retirement planning, and beyond. Located in Bucks County, PA, and Cape May, New Jersey. WealthAdvisoryServices.com. It's a personalized approach to managing your wealth.
There you go. Check it out. Make sure you also check out notforlongmedia.com. Great content there. Colin Thompson Show. You got
Breaking Bats podcast.
Yeah, Breaking Bats. Yeah. 2 Girls, 1 League. They got great stuff there. So check out all the content on Not For Long Media as well. And that's episode 36, Harry. So we'll be back next week. We'll crank it up. We'll see if the Eagles go to 4-0.
Yeah, next week, though, Michael Bradley's going to join us. And we'll talk
really?
About college football. Yeah. People have been requesting him.
Yeah, he is a cannon. He comes out like a cannon. So we'll have Michael Bradley next week on episode 37. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Leave us one of those 5-star rating and reviews and rip us in the process.
Yeah, we'll definitely read it.
Yeah. And we'll talk to everybody next week on a brand new episode of the Odds Podcast. Have a great week, everybody.